Fostering both mathematics and numeracy development, I think one of the key things that I try to do with students is help them connect their thinking to different materials and different contexts and to parts of their daily life so that they can see math isn't something that just happens at school between 11 and 12, that it's mathematics and numeracy is something that they apply and use to understand themselves and the world around them.
I think especially in math, it's really a challenge to help students build a relationship with math that's emotionally positive, because we know students who come in, and even our student teachers in the program, and even families, have built up a relationship with math that's often negative, something that they would rather avoid, something that they would do anything but. And so trying to build on what students bring with them into the class to help those strengths form a different kind of relationship with math. So they have a different identity. They see themselves as doers of math, as something that they could pursue as an adventure. And so ways to do that kind of involve getting to know students, building those relationships, getting to know the families, getting to know, in my case, where I taught on Haida Gwaii, I had multiple siblings in one family. So you got to know the kids really well, and you got to know the families well. So I knew what I could draw from in the problems that I created. And I could say, oh, remember when Auntie Emily designed that piece for your vest? You know, you can think about the symmetry in that, and I could bring in these examples. But to do that, you have to build those relationships, and that's really key.
How I engage with the kids is I need to get to know them first, so I always start the first 2 weeks off. Even if I've taught them before, we do core competency stuff, so focusing on our communication. If they haven't had me before, they really have their wall up. I hate math, or I don't need to talk in math, I just need to write. So we do a lot of informal things. We go outside, we make observations, I challenge them. I play Robin Wall Kimmerer. Most people can name 100 logos, but they can't name 10 plants. So then I go out and challenge them. And if somebody can name 10 plants, then I buy them Subway. And so little things like that. As it gets on, it's important to share a meal. So I always do that. It relaxes the kids.
So getting to know your students in context outside of class so that you can bring in those experiences helps you connect with them and build their identity, and helps connect with them in ways that you get to know what their strengths are so that you can see, okay, this child is really a good visual learner, so I'm going to use that strength to help them think about this problem in a different way so that they can build those challenges and make those connections together.
To understand math, somebody needs to persevere, and in life in general, somebody needs to persevere.
One of the things that I try a lot to do in my class is integrate math with art. We do a lot of integrating. I often point out to the kids, what are we doing? Where's math? Where's math in what we're doing right now? How is there math right now? Wherever you are, there's math, and we talk about how it's fun because there is a little bit of a nervousness about it, but we do talk a lot in my class about how what we're going to do right now is tricky. What we're going to do right now is hard, but we can do it. Let's take a deep breath, and we can do it. And learning is sometimes hard, and we do hard things in this class, and we can do this. I talk about that a lot in my classroom, so that there isn't this sort of shut down, give up. I can't do it.
I try to get activities that is worthwhile to them and at their abilities. So that doesn't mean that all the kids are working on the same thing. I have kids working on something different. Yeah.
I bring in kids' background knowledge. I also read a lot of picture books that are related to math. A lot of discussion, a lot of talking. What do you know about this? What do you connect with about this? Or what have you experienced with this before? What can you share about this? And then we usually build from that. I just see where that conversation is going, and we build our math into that from where they're coming from.
So over my years as an educator, I've curated quite a collection of children's literature and materials that support thinking and learning about mathematics in different ways. And that's really intentional in terms of making that visible in this space, both for educators that come here for professional learning, but also for students that come in. They may see someone that looks like them on a cover of a book that's about mathematics or science or engineering, different languages, different ways of telling stories of mathematics. So there's biographies of mathematicians when they were young. There's stories about connecting mathematics to the outside world, the outdoors, how we learn mathematics through baking. I have a new baking book that I have in here that's all about fractions. So it's helping students see, again, mathematics as beyond calculation, an important part of mathematics, but that it's woven throughout so many aspects of our daily life. So that's very intentional, and often draw upon those visuals from children's pictures books as examples for students. So where do we see fractions in this illustration? What connections are you making to mathematics in this illustration? And then also just curating different materials that show different representations of numbers, different representations of mathematics in different ways.
I really believe that math's in everything. Math is not just in the math class, and we really struggle with that at the high school, especially, to have people think about math being something they should be talking about across the board. So my thinking is, if I can make it real to kids, if I can make it part of their other subjects, part of their everyday life. So we're talking about cooking, we're talking about measurement. I'll go down to the automotive class and I'll go, oh, you're using a 5/8 wrench? Can we convert that? And they're like, oh, Todd, it's not math class. And I'm like, but it is math class. Everything's math. And they laugh and they talk about it. And then, you know, when they're organizing and being able to organize those fractions, they think about their wrenches. So it's all about making it relevant to the kids. So my automotive kids, that's how I get them into fractions, thinking about stuff. Whereas I might have my foodie kids, and then it's a whole cooking show we're talking about instead. And then there's my kids who don't really have anything to bring it to, and I'll talk about time, or I'll go back to the pizza if you have to, but try not to. Like, there's so many things out there other than the pizza to cut into fractions, for example. So it's just finding ways to make math real in their lives. And I think financial literacy has been the best one for all of the kids, because they all want to buy things. They all think that they all know everything about, you know, taxes and about percents off, and we talk about how things are great deals, and then all of a sudden they're hooked because it's, oh, a sale means that. And I think it's just making it relevant to them and making it not just math class. So I think that's the big thing about kind of hook them, and also being excited about it myself, right? And I think if you have that enthusiasm, they can't help but being excited.
The best way to foster numeracy is to give them something to think about. So they have to be interested. This is where they work on their persistence. This is when they're really working as mathematicians in the real world. So you want to give them something that they want to talk about, that maybe doesn't have all the details that you would find in something like a textbook word problem. And also something that has meaning for them in their life, so that it's relevant to them to work on. And then that's when you really start to see them engage.
When I think about designing for learning in mathematics or numeracy, I draw upon the work of Dr. John Vandewaal and Dr. Marion Small, and all the research in mathematics education that really leads to a three-part lesson structure, regardless whether it's, you know, a more direct, explicit lesson or a more investigative, exploratory lesson, where you begin the lesson all together in community. And so you're exploring some mathematics together, and the students are turning and talking or solving a problem or engaging with materials or doing an instructional routine together. And then from that inspires then that middle part of the lesson where students are practicing or investigating, engaging in mathematics on their own or with a partner, doing the mathematics, and that's the main part of the lesson. And then we come together again in community at the end to share their findings. And that's the part where the teacher really facilitates and maybe very carefully and intentionally selects or chooses, you know, a particular, you know, couple of students to share their strategies to move the learning forward for the whole class. And that's that sort of consolidation phase, is what the research suggests is really significant in mathematics in terms of students hearing each other's strategies and different ways of doing things.
Lots of it is talking and explaining your mathematical thinking. We do a lot of carpet time, a lot of explaining and talking and coming to the board and telling us what you think, and a lot of discussing what strategy you use to figure that out. I use this strategy. It's articulating it, explaining your mathematical thinking.
So we and that, just do that.
Yeah, we do things on the whiteboard, and a lot of communication happens when we're working in groups on a challenging problem at a whiteboard or at a window. And sometimes if we're out in the forest, like, all of that showing of their learning is really just talking about it, and it's talking to their friends. It's not even necessarily talking to an adult. I notice in my class lots of students will help each other, which is great, and I get to witness those situations. I never really ask kids to help each other unless I absolutely have to because I accidentally made something way too hard. But they do it naturally. Like, they'll ask the people around them, or because they're just kind souls.
We usually have a class discussion on the big idea, how we want to meet it, what our guiding question is. They're still not at the point where they freely speak it, but they'll speak it to me either quietly or they can write it down. So I've taken to making it a little piece of paper. This is the big idea we need to meet. These are possible guiding questions, and this is what you need to show me. How do you want to show me? What do you want to focus on? And then I give them a few options, and then they number it 1, 2, 3, or 4. And that's where we are right now. For the red dress, they opted for self-assessment. So I took their guiding question and some of the competencies that they selected, and those were guiding for the rubric. Like, I practice patience, it takes learning and time, for example. And I asked them for a strength and a challenge. And right now there's only a handful that can give me a strength. And so I'm really focusing on them recognizing their strengths, because they always give me lots of their challenges. No, we need to focus on your strengths. So that's what I'm working on in self-assessment for if they choose self-assessment.
So when we think about assessment in mathematics, I think some of our shift has been that it doesn't have to be on paper to count. That we can listen to students, we can observe students, we can engage in math conferencing or interviewing with students. We can sit back and watch and see how they're moving materials around to demonstrate their understanding of particular concepts or competencies. I think asking students is really important and sort of eliciting, what questions or wonders are coming up for them. So that structure of what do you notice and what do you wonder gives you a lot of information as a teacher about what's going on in the child's mind and where they are in sort of their development of their learning around a particular concept. It's around the language they use, how confident they feel about that particular concept and are able to describe it, what connections they're able to make. So, for assessment, when we think about proficient to that sort of extending level language, is that student able to make connections, math to math connections, math to self connections, math to world connections? Are they able to transfer their learning to different materials or different contexts? So those are some of the things to look for when we're assessing students, not whether they can just get the answer. It's how they got the answer. Can they do it flexibly and fluently? That expectation for proficiency is that you're able to accurately find a solution to a question, but that you're also able to think about it in different ways, not just in one way.
It's a nice one.
Photos I literally have 3,000 photos on my iPad, so that's a big part of assessment and reporting out. We've had a few other rounds of measurement in the class, so I've been able to come up with some stuff for some kids, so now I know going into this, I'm looking for 3 kids. What are they producing? And that works for me. I always have classroom assessment, and then I'll bring it outside usually if I'm questioning, so I don't pull them aside kind of in the classroom. And just do it out there. On your walking, you have lots of time to talk to a kid too. Count for me. Can you count by tens? Just walking and talking, walking and talking.
I really feed off the kid on where they're at. I also have Talk to Me Tuesdays or Thursdays. So you saw in the back of my classroom, I have a table, and they know that each and every single one of them is just going to sit in conference with me and share with me what they know. So I really value the oral response. It expresses so much more understanding than paper to me. So that's pretty much what I do with my conferences. And I start with, tell me what you know about this. And they always say, I don't know. And yes, you do. So I encourage them to believe in themselves. When they sit with me, I always give them a nudge. You can do this. I believe in you. Believe in yourself. You got this. That kind of thing. Sometimes I'll explain it, and then I get them to explain it back to me, and then I get them to explain it to their partner. And then I keep my ear out for, okay, they're explaining it, they understand. And I also talk with them regularly every day. I plop myself down beside them and just feed off wherever they're at.
Oh, isn't assessment more fun this way? Man, I'm just watching what the kids are doing. I'm not marking 100 worksheets at the end of the night. I'm sitting down with their groups and listening. And sometimes I'll have a clipboard with me and just checking things off if it's something I'm specifically trying to assess. So it's anecdotal notes, it's a lot of observations. I also take my phone around, take photos all the time of things that they're doing. And I take those photos I download them onto their files, and I'm like, here's an example of your child's work. I love the idea of conferencing. One-on-one conferencing sounds like a beautiful idea, but in the real world, it doesn't happen in a classroom of 28 or 30 kids. So I'll do group conferences where the kids will all have a piece to share, and I'll kind of listen to them, and they can interrupt each one another, they can do, and then we have to get back to the respectful kind of circle. They're going to take their turn so everyone has a chance to give their piece. And I know that the child here has maybe been coached by a child here, but they've still learned. Why is it bad if they've learned from this person coaching as opposed to me? So I'm assessing what they know at that point, and it's just so fluid. It's not a one-time shot thing, right? And I assess throughout the year as well. It's an ongoing assessment. So if someone didn't understand surface area earlier on in the year, but then we're doing a project where we're trying to decide what the best deal is for something, and they go, oh, well, that's got a bigger surface area, so I'm going to get more out of that. I'm like, wait a minute, what'd you just say? And then I just go back and I don't average it. I just change it to a 3. Or, you know, like my assessment's ongoing. It's mostly visual. And obviously I do quizzes. I need to for formative assessment. I need to do small little things. My favorite thing is actually my favorite mistake. So you'll do a question that everyone's messing up on. You bring it in, you choose one, you rewrite it on the board, and you go over, okay, what did this person do right? And we go through it, and we go through, no one knows whose it is. And the kids go through and they go through, oh, well, they did that right, and they did that. And everyone's just itching to say what they did wrong, right? And then we'll go, well, what do they still need to work on? And then the kids themselves come up with the answer. I'm not telling you did this wrong. Like, they're telling each other and they're solving it. And you're seeing kids go, oh, snap. Like, I have my paper back, and I'm like, oh, yeah, take it back. Okay, come get your papers, guys, redo it. And they hand it in again, and to me, I can see their assessment right there. I can see, okay, you've learned something. I mean, I'm gonna check it later on, obviously, to make sure they still know it, but yeah, assessment's just different than it was in the past. It's more dynamic, it's more kid-friendly, and it's way less paper.
So if we're trying to understand what a student's story in math is, that there are ways that we can do it that help them bring out the pieces that that are their strengths, right? So that assessment is not just about what they can and cannot do. And often, especially for students who don't feel very confident in mathematics, and we hit them with an assessment, say at the beginning of the year or at the end of a unit, and they demonstrate that they struggled, right? Or that they can't remember. And it makes them feel like math is something that is done to them, that they don't have any choice in. And we are learning to find ways to turn that story around so that it is about giving them opportunity to tell their story in mathematics so that we might learn what works for them and how we might then help them add to what they already do, right, as a gift to them, because math belongs to them. It's not something that we have to tick off or that we have to do to them. It is something that can help them, and that assessment is about understanding a student's story. And self-assessment is a big part of that. So on a daily level, self-assessment is a part of that. Having a student be able to name and identify, this helped me today, I did this and I did this well, this is what I would like to do next. And giving us a place to be able to give them some feedback on that. And the job of the teacher is sort of knowing the big picture, right? Where, okay, so this is where a student is demonstrating strength right now. This is the piece today that helped that student. Here's where I want to be able to take them next, because it's an individual's journey, right? And at the end of the day, this math belongs to them and should be something that helps them.
And so just these great conversations that come out of their real life problems. And then it's my job, I think, as the teacher to think, how can I fit the math in here? It's like, putting carrots in the spaghetti sauce. You're sneaking it in, and next thing you know, they're like, they've had all their vegetables, but it's all their math, and they're really pumped about it. And they have to go back and look at it and go, where was the math in this, guys? And like, oh, you snuck it in. And it's funny because they're like, yeah, I did use a lot of math to do that.